On this week's episode of the Crowdfunding Nerds, we discuss manufacturing for post-campaign sales, the important use of accessories, Amazon traps, sponsorships, and more. Let's get into it. Hey folks, this episode is brought to you by Hero Time Manufacturing. That is Hero Time, the numeral one.com. Hirsch Gleck has been a regular on our podcast. We highly recommend his services. He is a man of integrity. Hero Time, they can make anything. They've got competitive pricing, and they even do game prototypes. So make sure to check out Hero Time, numeral one.com. A link is in the show notes. And if you use the code crowdfundingnerds101, you can get a 3% discount on your production through them. Let's get back into the episode.
Game begin.
Let's go.
I used to be a marketer like you until I took an arrow to the knee.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another awesome episode of Crowdfunding Nerds. I am your host, Andrew Lowen, and I am joined as always by Sean. And man, this week we're going to be talking some strategy, like go-to-market strategy for using Deliverance as a case study, because I'm about to make my manufacturing order, and it being an expansion campaign, I'm actually, I completely sold out a product to sell for my publishing business, which generally is something you probably don't want to fully run out. Sometimes you would want to, but I'm thinking about how will I place the order for product in the right way to make sure that we get a kind of the maximum return possible. And so what I want to do is try to set myself up so that I've kind of, now that I've had the experience of selling through 5,000 games, running 2 Kickstarters, I know generally what people want on Kickstarter for our product and how that changes during the actual, when it comes time to sell during Christmas and during, over the course of the year, just for a product that ships within a week or 2 days on Amazon. And those things are quite different. So I'm, you had an experience this week with a client about, kind of talking about their strategy. And we thought that it would be really cool to just connect the dots and explore this, because a lot of people are thinking about when they eventually make their final manufacturing order, they're thinking, okay, I want to get enough units of my game to sell, but they might not be thinking, and I certainly wasn't thinking about how to properly bundle or what items people will really want and which items might they not want, and that kind of thing.
Or even where to sell your games. So that's important to add to the discussion as well.
Yeah. And I had a discussion with a client this week, Jason Young of Terminus Frontier, Forgeborn Games. They funded a Kickstarter with like over 1,200 backers, made like 260,000 or something, so, somewhere in the range of like 200,000s. And they were talking about like their manufacturing order, and they had, we'll just keep it simple. Like we'll call it 1,000 units of their game was sold. And so they were going to make 2,000 units. And I thought, maybe they should make more games than that. That would be, roughly, 85 games a month sold or 80 games a month sold if you wanted to sell through 1,000 units in 1 year, right? And that breaks down to like 2 to 3 games a day on average. But we know that, Christmas, Q4 is really the time that, like, I sold anywhere from 5 to 25 games a day. It's really 5, like 23, maybe 24 was like the height of selling per day during Q4. So obviously much higher than that average of, we'll call it 2.5 to 2.7 games per day. And even now, like Sean, how many games we're selling, because we're just doing pre-orders, but like it's like,
Yeah, at least about one a day, at least, because I think on average it hovers anything between 9 to 15 a week. So it's definitely one a day
and that's before we even actually have product to
to sell. Yeah.
So we haven't even manufactured it yet. So that number goes up a lot more when people are like, oh, I can get this next week. Great. So it's a big difference. So the kind of the idea behind the manufacturing, maybe I could share what I did the first go round and why, and my how my rationale has changed over that time. So the first deliverance campaign, we had roughly, I want to say, like 2,200 games that we sold. We had close to that many backers, and we had 2,200 games that like base games sold. There were roughly, I want to say, like 2,000 of each add-on that were claimed, maybe like between 1,500 to 2,000 of each add-ons. We had 3 add-ons. There were acrylic standees. Some people call those skinny minis. It's kind of like a plastic, like clear, transparent glass with art printed on one side, so it looks really fancy, like a fancy version of a cardboard cutout. And then we had metal coins, which we had a large, what my fans have affectionately referred to as the first player weapon. It's a very large token. It's like a coin that's 8 millimeters thick, and it feels really fun to just hold.
It's actually a great dice tower. You can throw dice on it and it just pops off it.
Yeah, if you actually, I this funny side story, but I showed a bunch of like young Gen Z guys that you could do that. And if you hold the dice like 1 inch above the coin and let them go, they bounce and twist and stay stationary on top of the dice or on top of the coin. It's super cool. But so it included that, as well as like 24 what are called courage tokens. They're the currency in the game that you spend and gain, and so you're touching it a lot. And then lastly, we had a neoprene playmat, so a very large, roughly, I mean, it was 686 by 1,117 millimeters. I don't know how that exactly translates. Roughly like 4 feet wide by 3 feet long. It's like 2.5 feet long by 4 feet wide. And those were the 3 add-ons, and that made up our quote unquote all-in edition of the first Kickstarter that we ran. And so I remember roughly, so we decided on a manufacturing run of 5,000 units. So 2,200 games were pre-ordered through our Kickstarter, and also our post campaign. I think we made it to 2,700 games actually by the end, before we actually delivered the product. I want to say about 2,700 games. So I think we sold another 400 or 500 games, and in our post campaign pledge manager, we made the manufacturing order. We weren't sure if we should go with 6,000 games or with 5,000 games. 6,000 would reduce the amount of money we had in the bank account to like very, very low, which is dangerous if you need a little bit of money to be able to, pay monthly expenses. And, like, it's not like your games are going to start selling like the moment that you get them. You want to have a little bit of wiggle room. The bank account reaching zero is a big problem. Even if you've got money that's going to come in, it doesn't help you today, right?
Yeah, well, in fact, we have some clients e-commerce where their ads are doing really well. They're selling, but they tell me, "Hey, turn off the ads because they have cash flow issues where even though the ads are working, they're making money, they can't spend over a certain threshold. Otherwise, they just everything falls apart. So sometimes you are just limited by cash flow issues, and you have to be aware of that, and you need to kind of plan for it. But we do have clients where their ads do very well, and they're getting really great returns. And I can't increase the ad spend and reach more people because they just don't have the capital to invest in doing that.
Right. They've said, okay, I'm making this much money, and then they kind of set forth their budget, and they plan on, this quantity of projects, and they need to pay these subcontractors, and they have this much money to do all of that. And their marketing, eventually, as companies grow, needs to be like a static number that they can rely on and budget for. So they're like, okay, I budgeted, whatever, $100,000 this year to spend on ads. So we actually have to stay at a certain rate, because even if a project does really, really well, and sometimes there's wiggle room, but yeah, we just have to kind of be we can't be a variable in their, when they're doing their math, right? And figuring
And for
out.
those who don't know, you can go to the billing section of your Meta ad account and you can set up a monthly spend threshold. So if you do have a budget that you want to make sure you stay within, and you cannot cross that monthly spend, that is something you can set up.
Yeah, and that's something that, if you're working with a marketing agency and just want that extra measure of guarantee control, like what if somebody,
Made a
decides they don't like
mistake
me, or
or
what
just
makes a mistake, or
or to
yeah,
get hacked or whatever. So yeah, it's good to have it up as a precaution.
right. So yeah, then um so okay, we sell about 2,700 units of the base game, and we sold around, by the end, when product actually arrived, we were selling through pre-orders as much as we could, through Hive Pledge Manager, backer kit first, then Hive Pledge Manager next. And because we made a pledge manager switch partway through, or like kind of before we shipped the product, during manufacturing. And the we decided on our numbers. We decided um 2,000 units of most of the add-ons, and I think we switched to 2,500 metal coins rather than 2,000 at like the very last second, because I realized I didn't have like a super close track of all my numbers. And I thought, oh, well, if we get, we had like 1,500 all ins. So if I get 2,000 of every add on, I'm going to be fine. But I should have actually looked at how many we sold, because by the time I did, I'm like, okay, we've sold 2,200 metal coins. Oh my goodness, we have only ordered 2,000. And so at like the last moment, I contact our manufacturer. The rest of them, by the way, were like 1,800 or something. And so I contacted our manufacturer and was like, hey, we need to go to 2,500 units of the metal coins. And they were able to do that for us. But we didn't, there would have been like a benefit in like a cost decrease on their quote. If we went from 2,000 units to 2,500 units, there would have been a slight cost decrease across all 2,000 units of those metal coins. But we ended up uh, asking, and they were like, okay, but we're going to charge you at the 2,000 unit price for these extra 500. And I had to say okay, because it was inconvenient for them to suddenly have to make 500 more, right?
Mhm.
And so when we finally arrived, when all the stock arrived, it was around September or October of 2023. And I remember, we got all the games out. Bridge Fulfillment actually did a really good job for us. They got everything out within like 3 weeks, and there were very little errors in their process, which is wonderful. That's why I recommend them now. That's why I allow them to advertise on our podcast. It's like, that's because they do a good job, and I actually legit recommend them. But so then for quarter four, Christmas time, we get on all the places you should be, which we can talk about a little bit, like Amazon, our website, etc., and started advertising for our products. And we and the trends, the things that sold really well are neoprene playmats. I ordered 2,000 of them. I want to say we only had 1,500 that were claimed. It was the add-on that would be quote unquote least popular, markedly least popular. In fact, it might have even been like, yeah, I guess 1,500 all-ins or so. It was around 1,500 neoprene mats that we sold. Not a lot of people that, unless you went all in, you really didn't get the neoprene playmat. It wasn't a common add-on. Whereas somebody would oftentimes get the base game and then add the metal coins on. And then maybe if they wanted to stretch a little further, they would add the acrylic standees. But the neoprene playmat was the clear third most popular add-on. Not counting our t-shirts, which we did as well. But so sent all our stuff out. Now we have roughly 2,300 games. We have around 200 of each add-on. And then I want to say it was like between 300 to 400 neoprene mats. And I'm like, now I really want these things to sell. My goal with the original manufacturing order was that if I could sell through all 5,000 units, then I would be sold out. I want to make sure all the add-ons are sold out, because if I have add-ons left and then all the games are gone, then it doesn't make any sense. I would rather have the add-ons sold first, and then the actual game is the main product that people would want to buy. So I just want to make sure I don't print too many add-ons. And something that I noticed, so we sold all of our add-ons out by like, basically by Christmas. And there were some things that I noticed, like by bundling, that were really surprising that Kickstarter didn't teach me, that I had to go to e-commerce to learn about this kind of change in customer behavior. Um, and and which we'll get into, but I wanted to apply the lessons that I learned at that time to me today, which is going to place another manufacturing order. And so before we kind of get into the lessons that were memorable to me, you have any thoughts on all that I had shared, or you know,
Yeah, well, in
should I
terms of
dive in?
people listening into to this, I think you have to think you're selling a game, but you need to think of accessories because this is how you bump up your order value. So whether it's some type of deluxe component, whether it's something extra. Now we have a client of ours who developed a game about witch burning. It's like a party
Burn the
game.
Witch. It's literally called
Yeah,
Burn the Witch.
it's cool. Burn the witch. They did a really good job with it, and I think they treated that topic quite
Kind of
sensitive.
like the Salem witch trial
Yeah,
theme,
kind of they treat it quite
post-production.
sensitively, despite the kind of gory theme. But they
I was
they
very
sold
impressed actually with how they treated it. So,
they sold a book, historical book. I think it from the 1400s or so, and it's about witch burning, and they sold it with the game. And I think currently that he sells more of those books than he does the game. But it's a really good add-on because it's within the theme. It helps people kind of get immersed in that kind of history. The game's based on in the historical events. So that's like that's something that's perfect for that type of game. So you sell T-shirts and things, but like you might have your game, but you might be able to do something which won't take a lot more effort that you can then add, and this is the perfect thing for your shop. So it could be a book. It could be like I think one thing that people don't do enough of, to game developers, is design diaries. Um, we recently talked with Rob Raffia of Naughty Dog fame, and he worked on a lot of games. And one thing I loved about the Naughty Dog games, so historically, is that by playing the game, you could unlock these kind of scrapbooks or design diaries. So you had to collect so many things, and you got like a reward in game. But they also did guides and things where you could also get access to basically the same stuff. And these design diaries always showed concept art, or progression, or um, landscape drawings and things like that. So it was really great to see, what they originally started off with and what you got in the final game, and like even interviews, like text interviews and things. Like I think this is something that's very easy because you've got all the content already, and just sort of capitalizing on that investment in terms of concept art and sketches and drawings, and then just even your design process. So we first started off with this, and then we changed to this. I think people would find that interesting, and they'll be willing to throw an extra $5-10 into, even if it's a PDF that they can look through. I think that's a very easy thing that any game designer can do. It's just have like a PDF design diary that you've put together and make it look graphically nice, and that it's just worth the $5. But that's just a way to kind of increase your order value by $5. And enough people do that, it's going to be worthwhile. So that's something I think you need to start thinking about in terms of accessories. What things can you add to your game that accompany it, whether it's deluxe components or whether it's just these kind of little add-ons which aren't too taxing to do, and that can drive up that order value, because that's becomes super important in e-commerce. You're already trying to get because it's expensive driving traffic to a website to get people to consider your game. So if they can buy more stuff with that one click, it's just going to make your advertising campaigns a lot more profitable, a lot easier to scale, rather than if they're going to your page and they can only accept one offer. This is often, we have clients that have great games, but they only are offering one game. And it's binary. It's like I either buy the game or don't buy the game. Whilst if I can send someone to a store that has a catalog of games, well, the likelihood of purchasing is much higher, or if there's accessories and things that can easily be added to cart. And I think I know you want to talk about your manufacturing. We can get back to this, but you also need to think about upselling. I know we can come back to that topic, but we can talk about ways of how you can encourage upselling. But that's something you need to think about as well. It's like you need to lead someone in with something that looks good, but it's like, hey, just for a little bit more, you can upsell. And this is kind of what we do on Kickstarter with the pledge levels. It's like you can get the basic pledge, but just for a little bit more, you can get this really cool component, and just a little bit more from that, you get the all in. So, and you've kind of developed this kind of upsell in your pledges, and you need to think about that for your final store as well.
Tabletone is a phenomenal app. I use it every time I play tabletop role-playing games with my family. It greatly enhances the immersive experience. In fact, it's night and day using it and not using it. It can also be used for board games or any card game. It's great background music. It's made by a company based in Austria who have their own studio, who've developed their own software specifically to cater to your specific needs within the different game settings. So you can control intensity, there's different background noises. You can get it for free, and there's also a trial that you can run for 2 weeks that will give you full access to their entire catalog of sounds and audio. Definitely check it out. Link is in the description. Visit tabletone.app for more details.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's a huge thing that I'm thinking about. And during a crowdfunding campaign, you've got your base game. If people back the base game, they're like, all right, I'm in for the base game. In fact, most of the time, if people jump in on crowdfunding campaigns, they're gonna get the deluxe edition because it's much more common to, the crowdfunding audience wants the premium version. And, it's going to be at the best price that they could get it right now. And so if I'm going to jump in, I'm going to get the deluxe edition. A lot of people are very conscious of getting all the gameplay content. That's a really important thing. The cosmetic upgrades are different, but they want all the gameplay. So it's really important that you have a pledge level that has all the gameplay. It's like, this is the pledge level that has all the gameplay. And if that's your base pledge, then you may actually, it's as long as it's clear, but you should have your deluxe edition include all the gameplay, unless there's like an expansion or something like that. But make sure you have one tier in your crowdfunding campaign that has all the gameplay, and then another one that has all the cosmetic upgrades, right? So for myself, like, upsells, I need so that the logic is that if I'm gonna get this, then I want to get the best version of this that the customer will think either has all the gameplay or has all the essential, most important add-ons that you can't live without. On our Discord, we have people asking all the time about our various add-ons, like, if I have money to get one add-on, which add-on should I get? And it's like, some people are like, oh, the acrylic standees are the best, or the metal coins, or whatever. But you want to have those options on your website. In particular, your web store is a really important piece of the puzzle if you want to sell later. There are people that will use like pledge managers, like a Hive actually does a really good job with this, where they do like second wave pledges, where you can, or in essence, place a pre-order for another manufacturing run of a product. And some companies will do that. But I think it's really important to have a web store where people can go that is either WooCommerce or Shopify. Shopify tends to be more simple, I guess, that, if you wanted to do it yourself. Some people will use Wix, but I think WooCommerce is, in my opinion, one of the best if you have a development team. Like, if you're in a marketing company like ours that could build your website, WooCommerce is great. But then Shopify, I think, is actually a little lower of an entry point. Like, you could kind of do it yourself without being an expert. But then to get, it has a lot of really great integration. You never truly own your website if it's a Shopify site. Shopify owns it and kind of licenses their platform to you, whereas WordPress, in WooCommerce, you kind of own, you have more control over things. But and also, Shopify plugins can cost monthly, whereas WordPress, you just buy them once, right? But so I think that, but Shopify takes a lot of the thinking out of it, and a lot of the difficult, what if your website gets hacked? Like, that's something that Shopify does a really good job kind of defending against. But whereas, like, if WordPress and WooCommerce, you're kind of on your own. So the upsell process, that funnel on the website, looks very different from something like Amazon. Amazon is its own beast, and you're not generally going to have upsell potential on Amazon in the same way that you do on your own website. So, like, the most common, and I'll pass it back over to you, Sean. The most common way to upsell is to have the base game on your website, but then to feature a bundle first. Like, I call it the essentials bundle, or call it the deliverance bundle, or for my, your game names bundle. For me, it was the what was it, the Black Friday bundle, or something like that. The holiday bundle, and that actually was the Deliverance base game, or well, it was a deluxe game because we only made deluxe. And then also the Neoprene mat, which was the add-on that I had the most of, that I actually really needed to sell. So I posted, I bundled both for a slight discount over what you could get each item for, and bundled shipping, and that became by far my most popular item in the store. So even though it was the least popular add-on. Um, so
Yeah, I think people are always looking for a deal, and if you can make your offer look attractive, then that's the way to go. Something that I'm going to be experimenting with one of our clients that have had experience doing this, and they've shown me the kind of back end, and it looked really impressive, is ClickFunnels. And ClickFunnels is basically a landing page development, but it has integration with Shopify, so you can plug it directly into Shopify store, the API. So if someone makes a purchase through this, it'll enter to the back end of your Shopify store. But what this ClickFunnels is really designed to do is to create landing pages that you can optimize and offers you can optimize. So we're going to run ads for a very entry level bundle, a product that has very good value. It'd be like $30 for like a product that's really good. And then as you go to checkout,
like 60, right?
yeah, yeah. And then as you go to checkout, it's going to say, hey, do you want to complete your collection? And you just hit a checkbox, and then it'll automatically upgrade your pledge from that $30 to $80. And that comes with more stuff. And that's they showed me they had did this in the past. It was a very effective method of driving sales. And, they got a couple of people at 30, but a lot were upgrading to that $100 mark. So this is something that we're going to try. And the great thing is that with the system like ClickFunnels, you can A/B test the pages. So you can find, okay, well, if we change this wording at the top, now what does it do to the conversions? And then you can also start changing the offer. So instead of offering like a 50% discount, maybe bring it down to 40% and 30%, and see where's the kind of cutoff point where you see that people just stop engaging with this offer and sale. So you can kind of control that offer. But I do think the importance is that upsell. Now, you can also do this on your store by laying out the products in such a way. I think bundles is how you'd want to do this. And I think it's really important when you design your store that, at the bottom says you might also like, or something to that effect of recommendations. So if
Related products.
if they're buying the core game, they can quickly see underneath that, oh, you can also get this kind of essentials bundle, and it comes with a core game. It's only like $10 more. Why wouldn't I get that, or whatever? And I think that that's the kind of attitude you want to have. Oh, if I just spend $20 more, I get all this extra value. You get all this extra stuff. Why am I'm just losing money by getting just the core game? So I may as well just pay a little bit more. And I think that's kind of where you want to try to push people and provide that extra value to folks, but also increase your order value. It's going to help sustain your business. But another thing about this platform, it's really important that you sell in your own store. I was actually talking to a client recently, and they said that they've lost 20,000 this year on Amazon.
Wow.
Because Amazon, says free shipping, but it's not. They actually put the burden of the shipping and the payment of the shipping onto the publisher. So when they sell a product, they actually have to pay for the shipping as well. So it looks like it's cheaper on their store, on Amazon, but it's not cheaper on Amazon. And then they got to pay Amazon a cut. So they actually make a lot more money on their store. And basically what's happening is like Amazon's stealing from them.
Yeah.
They actually make more money on their store, but Amazon is the one that people are buying on Amazon and filtering because the offer looks better, but it's not better for the publisher. So it's a really horrible situation. It really kind of was an eye opener, and kind of like the shadier side of Amazon as this kind of evil monopoly that just steals from small publishers. I don't know if there's a way around that, or out of that, but that's something I think I'd like to address in the podcast that publishers should be aware of. And how do you fight that? Because obviously that's not great for publishers. You don't want, and I think maybe you just as like
It's definitely a can of
selling games.
I'll say, yeah, like I said, as a person buying games, I am not, you know, I I'm actually pretty high IQ. My IQ is like 141. Last I checked was like 18 or something. Maybe it's gone way down since then. I don't know. But I
All the
consider
punches to the
myself,
face.
yeah, but honestly, if my Q was 90, like Forrest Gump, I would be smart enough to buy a product that I wanted at the best price. I'm not going to be, I'm not a fool. Like, I definitely want to benefit the company that made it, of like, so if it's the same price, if it's, delivering it's $99 on Amazon or $99 with maybe $10 shipping on a person's website, then I'm like, okay, but if I can get free shipping, if I just like throw in like, oh, I'll add the metal coins and then shipping becomes free, then I don't feel like I'm actually losing. If it was 99 with $10 shipping on a publisher's website versus just $99 on Amazon, like I will probably use Amazon because I'm like,
Mhm.
why is the publisher like penalizing me for using their site, right? And so you want to make sure that you can kind of compete with Amazon through bundling. That's one major way you can compete. But
Yeah.
another thing is, and we've had this conversation like a long time ago, like when I say a long time, maybe like 2 years ago on this podcast about trying to control the flow of your product through distribution. So what people will do is they will, if your product is in distribution, there are deep discounting companies that will buy your product from the distributor. The distributor is going to sell at 50% off, and unless you put controls in there, with that distributor, which your mileage may vary on the effectiveness of that, you'll get companies that will buy 10, 12 copies of your game. They'll put it on Amazon for like 80% the price. So they're buying it for 50% and they're marking it up only 30 instead of what or only to 80% instead of, let's say, like a local hobby shop would mark up so that it costs the retail price. That's 100% of the cost versus like the deep discounter that just sells on Amazon is going to sell it at like 80% the cost. So $99 game becomes an $82.46 game on Amazon because the person selling it doesn't they're just concerned about the volume of stuff they're selling.
Mhm.
They'll make, $10 from this and $2 from that, and they'll sell all sorts of different products. They're huge warehouses that, that companies that have huge warehouses, they sell all manner of product. And if the product sells well, and we've had this experience before, we actually kind of worked our way out or talked our way out of being this one company that we were spending lots of money on Facebook ads. We weren't selling very much on their website. I'm like, this is really weird. But I noticed that a seller on Amazon had 150 units of this product, and it was deep discounted, well below the value listed on the web store. And they re-upped the quantity of the product when it reached like 10 units. It was like, oh, all of a sudden there are 200 more. It's like, holy cow, we're selling for someone else. We
Mhm.
are selling the product. It's just that this company kind of lost control of their product because they printed too much and put it all into distribution to just sell it real quick. And now they have stocks that they're trying to sell on their own website, but they created their own competition with all of these people that bought through distribution, or maybe just a handful of people. They're like, oh, this product is selling really well, I'm going to buy more. And they don't that deep discounting company is kind of gaining the benefit of all of the marketing dollars that publisher
That
spent.
they're spending. Yeah.
So it was a bad idea to go into distribution that way. Because they didn't have tight price controls, right?
So one way to kind of combat this is that if you control which items go to Amazon. So I think you did this with Deliverance, where you could only get the core game on Amazon, but all the accessories, the upgrades, middle coins, the mat, you had to get on your store. So there was always an incentive to go to the store and to get those bundles. Whilst on Amazon, you could only get the core game. So that I think that's one of the best ways to just like limit what is actually on Amazon
Yep.
and force people in a way to go to your store. So that way you're getting the best of both worlds. And I think that I would encourage publishers to think about that and controlling the beast that is Amazon by limiting which products are available there.
Yeah. One huge, I don't want people to miss this one, is that if I were to say, okay, instead of 5,000 units for my first print run, of which I had like 2,300 to actually sell, um, if I were to say, okay, I'm going to make 6,000 units instead, then I would have 3,300 units to sell. Um, that last 1,000 units, I'm like, man, that distributor looks really good. They're willing to buy like 500 units or 400 like right now. like that's pretty attractive. But then I create my own competition because if I sell to a distributor, you can not that you're guaranteed to, like you can always work with your distributors to try to put, like I said, controls of, okay, online retailers, I'm not gonna allow any online retailers to buy these, et cetera. But if a major distributor buys from you, they're like, we need to sell these things. We don't care how we sell them, we just need to sell them. So whoever is going to buy them, we're going to sell them to those people. And that's if the distributor purchases those products from you, you don't have the authority to tell them how they are able to sell them. They have bought those rights by purchasing the products. So if you hand your product to a distributor on consignment, meaning they don't have to pay you until the product is actually sold, then you have more authority on how, who they sell to and who they don't, right? But so one of the most important things that I didn't realize was so important is that distribution is not all it's cracked up to be for an independent designer. You need to make sure you have a tight control on your product so that you don't, if you make $100 or $150 game, you don't see a deep discounter selling it for $75 on
Yeah.
on Amazon. Um, so that's a really, really important that we're definitely maintaining that barrier of just letting anybody that wants it purchase it from a distributor. We will have um bridge fulfillment in the US is going to be sort of a guardian. They're going to put our products on various websites and also offer through distribution. So if a retailer wants to purchase, I just direct them to Bridge, and or if they want to purchase directly from me, that's fine too. But the retail accounts are with Bridge. The Bridge has a certain number of units that I will allocate and allow them to sell to retail stores. I can say I do not want you selling to this particular store, like some like online retailers. I'm like, I don't want you to sell to online retailers. There are two exceptions to that. One is Game Nerds. I will allow you to sell it to Game Nerds because they had they did a good job with the pricing. And then also what's the other one? The Game Steward was another one that I'm like, you can sell to Game Steward, you can sell to and we sold like over 100 games or 200 games that way. And the rest were to retailers. But that and those people sell just on their own websites. And even if they discounted, like Game Nerds ended up discounting our product by like $10. It's not something that's like, oh, that's plastered everywhere like Amazon would be. Amazon is plastered everywhere. So you got to make sure
Yeah,
that
I don't even think you can control the pricing on Amazon. Sometimes they just discount it, because they're like, it's
right.
going to sell more. And then
Yeah, well, they have authority to discount, and oftentimes, so I did a lot on Amazon, in the past, and when they discount, it's when you sell um at a discount on your own website. They're going to match that price, and what they'll do is, so you can actually on Amazon, you can um there's a promotion you can run on it through Amazon. It's like, in their ad center that you will pay the difference by reducing the price. You'll actually pay Amazon the difference, so that you can have a discount on your product. However, Amazon, and I don't think that's a super smart thing to do, but Amazon reserves the right to reduce the price anyway. They're actually going to reduce from their own cut, as well. So, but they will be able to reduce that price to match. If like I have a game listed for $99 on Amazon and I'm selling it on my website for 89, and Amazon gets a hint of that, they may actually reduce their price to 89 as well. And some of their fees are going to be reduced, but some of my margin is going to be reduced too, because my website had it for cheaper, and Amazon is going to compete with me. So the Amazon cannot compete with a bundle though. So if the game is $99 and the neoprene mat is, we'll just call it $50. It's something like 45. But that pricing would be $149 or 144, right? But I'm selling those two things together for 129. That is a very good deal. When somebody would be like, "Oh wow, I can get like 50% off of the neoprene mat and whatever." I'm going to do that. So Amazon will be like, "Oh, they're selling their product. It's more expensive than what I have here." So they are not going to change. And so in many cases, when we would sell our product, there would be some people that just like I remember one time I went to a park and there were these moms that were talking to my wife, and they all had kids playing at the park, and my wife was like, "Oh, you should get Deliverance," and the families were like, "Oh, we love tabletop games," and they love Deliverance. The idea of Deliverance, and they turned to me and they were like, "Wow, your game it sounds really cool. We think it'd be great for a present for our families and whatever." Is it on Amazon? It was like, if it's not on Amazon, that's it. That's the end of the
Not buying,
conversation.
yeah.
And that is how some people are. So you will straight up not sell your product if it's not listed on Amazon to a subset of people.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's that's and by the way, for us, our add-ons, that was a really good point you brought up, is like, don't list the add-ons on Amazon. We made that choice. We figured we would sell all the add-ons on our own, but that the game, we might not actually need some help, selling the game. And so we chose not to list any of the add-ons there. But also, very importantly, we did not put any of the add-ons into distribution. If we did that,
Mm.
and somebody could have purchased and
Just
then
put
they
them
could
on
create a listing. I
put
couldn't.
them on Amazon.
Yeah. So I couldn't stop someone else from creating a listing. If they have any product they want, doesn't have to be, it's my so what I did was I actually took ownership of my brand on Amazon for low end games so that I could shut down anything else. Like, I have a registered trademark for Deliverance. And that is something that I can use to say, like, hey, they are selling my brand and I did not allow that. And so that's also really important as well. But
Another thing you could do is you can control where people go to find your game by putting an ad in your game itself. So whether this is like a leaflet that you just include and says, "Oh, get 20% off your next order on my store," or whether it's the back of your rule book. What I think the kind of mastery of this was done during the PlayStation 2 era. I was just looking back at my old PlayStation 2 games and like opening up the old boxes, and there was ads in there. I didn't even notice it as a kid, but yeah, these are actually advertisements to go buy the game book, or like the playthrough guide, or to check out another game that they've produced. And I think that's a really clever way. I think another maybe great contemporary example of this is Flip 7. If you get a game of Flip 7, they've got these spare cards, which is to introduce other friends to the game. It has a QR code. You just hand it to a friend, because the idea is that someone's going to play it at the table. They like the game, and then the person who has the game, oh yeah, here's an extra card. Here you can, takes you to the website if you want to buy it yourself. So things like that, and I actually think another area where publishers could explore is sponsorships. So one thing I'm thinking about for the game I'm developing, Cypherpunk, is obviously it's about cryptography and internet privacy and those types of things. And there's a lot of businesses that sell privacy software, privacy things. And I'm thinking, I could, at the back of the rule book, could have a page dedicated to ads where someone pays a sponsorship and you get a placement to, like, I don't know, get encrypted email or something, like Proton Mail, whatever it is. And they can just pay for the listing, and I could say, well, look, it's, and you can always do this post Kickstarter as well. Once you actually have your orders and say, hey, look, we sold how many copies, and say, this is how much it costs to put your ad at the back of the rule book with a QR code. And like that's a way that you can monetize your game outside of just selling copies as well. That kind of falls within the purview of your theme. So I don't know if your game is about nature or something. Maybe there's like a place where you can kind of, like a zoo or something. I'm not sure,
Market
but
Yellowstone.
yeah, exactly. There's going to be something that you might be able to run an ad for. That's obviously it works, and then look, that helps you kind of recover some of your marketing costs and things as well. So I think that's something that you can think about as well in terms of putting ads inside the box itself, whether it's going to your store, whether it's allowing people who play your game the ability to hand that to somebody else, whether it's directing people to another title of yours, or whether it's just simply an ad for another product that's kind of within the same theme as yours. I think is worth considering as well.
Yeah, yeah. I think that there are games that do a really good job. In particular, the inside of the bottom, or sorry, the outside of the bottom box cover. So each box is two pieces. There's the top that actually sits on top of the game. That if you look at all the sides, 5 of the 6 sides, other than the box back, are from the box top. But when you take the top off, you see the inside, or rather the lower piece of the box that has 4 areas as well that you will want to have some sort of wrapping, right? A graphic design of some kind. And I see a lot of companies using that to advertise their products. And I think that's really smart. And then in addition to that, like you said, the leaflet, you can advertise all of the cool premium upgrades that you can get for this item. Or like for me, my base game absolutely is going to have a big fat ad for my expansion that they can, if you love this, you can get that. It's a really, really valuable um, uh, piece of real estate, because not only do I have my customers' attention, with that thing, even though they might take it and discard it or whatever, it's one of those things. They're like, that's really cool. Now they actually open the game and see all the components. They're like, dude, I'm definitely getting metal coins for this. And they snag them real quick, and I've had people do that, that have purchased the game, and I know that we ran out of our add-ons quite early on, and add-ons became a very big request for people, because we sold through all our games, and we still had almost 2,000 copies left after people had purchased all the add-ons and they were gone. And so it's like it became a thing. It's like, yeah, no, we're going to reprint the add-ons during our next Kickstarter, and that was a big thing. But you could get the base game and play it and whatnot. And so there were a lot of people that were like, okay, like, give me your email list or something. I need to be reminded about your Kickstarter. It's really important to me to get the metal coins or whatever, right? And so that became really a big deal. But how awesome would it have been if I did have enough stock, which is one of the changes we're going to make for this time around with the add-ons. We're going to make sure we have enough stock to last longer. How awesome would it have been if I would have like if I had a pamphlet inside saying you can get premium metal coins. You can upgrade all the cardboard standees to acrylic glass that's 2.8 millimeters thick and super high quality, and full art, and that kind of thing. So it's a really, really smart play, you know.
Particularly on Amazon, where you can you kind of use your core game as like the lead magnet, where they buy the game, they take it home, open it up. Oh yeah, I can get all these cool accessories on the website. Oh, and there's a discount code. Cool, and that's just going to incentivize them to go to your store, check it out, and add something to the cart.
Which is why you put an accessory bundle on your store, right? If you have the base game, what's the entry level, the base game accessory bundle, the expansion accessory bundle, right? Like when people have this in e-commerce, just in general, there are these two moments of two critical moments. Number one, they click your ad and they see the product and they add the product to cart. They could explore, they could look at add-ons. It doesn't mean they're going to buy it. They're going to add to cart, which is a very innocuous moment. You can add something to the cart and you can think about it and abandon your cart and whatever. And it's not a big deal. But the first moment of that's a major decision is begin checkout. When I begin the checkout process, there's something that happens all the time. I'm sure you probably do it whenever you're checking out on a website. You search whatever company, playdeliverance.com coupon codes, and you're looking for some sort of discount, like just in case, if you buy clothing or you buy board games, or you buy whatever from a website, you want to just check just in case if there's not like some $5 off or 10% or whatever, or free shipping coupon code that you might easily find on a Google search or like in ChatGPT, right? And so and then you begin the checkout process. You look to make sure you have the best deal or a good deal. And the one thing that majorly helps at that moment is a discount. Like a coupon is a discount for a bundle. When you have the bundle, you get a discount already. That really eases there's the moment of like, should I progress? Do I feel like I'm getting a good deal? People want to get a good deal, and so they'll make forward progress. The next moment is like, do I really want this? Is the complete checkout or complete purchase or order complete or order confirmation, whatever. That button that when you punch in your credit card information, you punch in your address for delivery, and then you're about to hit the button that's like checkout. The complete checkout. That is the moment where you're like, do I really want this? And it again really, really helps to have a discount. And if there was a threshold that they could have earned free shipping, that is a big deal as well. Um, Customers don't mind paying for shipping, but depending on the level of cost for the product, $5 is very reasonable. If something was $99 on a website with $5 shipping, and or I could get it for $99 on Amazon, but I'm already at the website, I may get the product. If it was $15 shipping and it was marked down to $5, like it's $5. It's a cup of coffee at Starbucks, but maybe I could be I'm okay, right? And and they may just move forward. But they're looking for those two things, the free shipping as well as the the discount. So they're looking for those two things. So there's a lot more that we can talk about on this subject of like the future plan and why I'm getting what I'm getting in regard to manufacturing. Um, the truth is,
How do you determine how many orders accessories to order then? 'Cause that could be the challenge, right? Because you have to order obviously for your Kickstarter backers, but then how much is there a certain percentage you would recommend in terms of how much you should order on top of that you're hoping to sell out? What's the kind of procedure for publishers to work out what accessories they need order, the volume of accessories that they need?
yeah. So I'm for myself. I'm looking at the quantity of base games that I order. So we sold roughly. We're going to sell about 4,000 probably by the time we go to manufacturing. So if let's say I were to, you know, let's just say for sake of argument, we sold 4,000 base games, 3,000 expansions, and you know, 2,500 of each accessory. If I were to, you should always print a little more than you have made to make sure that there are replacement copies, that there are issues. If somebody gets a box that was totally crushed by a crane or something on the way over here or whatever, right? Somebody at UPS or FedEx just decided to give it the people's elbow and put a huge dent in there. You need to be able to issue a replacement, right? If it's just broken, or maybe it got rained on and I don't know, whatever. You need to have units to replace, or maybe it never arrived. So if I sold 4,000 base games, I would get at a minimum 10% more. That would be my minimum order, just to simply fulfill the demand that I have, all the pre-orders. So for me, I would order at this point, I would order in multiples of 1,000, because you get discounts. If I go from 4,000 to 5,000, that's a discount. If I go 5 to 6, that's a discount on like all quantities, right? And the overall price tag goes up for everything, but the price per unit decreases. So I will make more money. After I have sold through all of my units, I will have made more money. So the so everything is calculated off of the base game and the excess copies that you have of the base game in stock. So one one ratio that I've heard, which is because we're making an expansion, is you will sell 4 times as many base games as you do the expansion. And I'm presuming that this advice is given for an expansion that requires the base game to play, rather than a standalone expansion that you could buy on its own without the base game. So if that is 4 to 1, let's just say I sell 4,000 units of the base game, and I'm going to buy, I decide 6,000 units of the base game is what I'm going to buy, which means that I have 2,000 base game units over and above what people have pre-ordered. Then I can only really buy 500 more expansions, because unless you bundle them together and make them irresistible, if I make 1,000 expansions, I could sell through all those base games and still have 500 expansions requiring a base game. It's like, this is not good, because I don't actually have the base game, so all of this product is kind of not useful on its own. So it's really important to consider that. So if I want to make 4,000 expansions, I have 1,000 extra, then over and above what I were pre-ordered, I'm going to need to buy or to get 4,000 extra base games, right? So if I want to sell 4,000 base games, means I'm going to sell 1,000 expansions because 25% of my orders will contain base game and expansion. Now, again, I think that we might do like if I were to do like 4,000 base games extra, I might do like 1,500 expansions because if let's say I'm down to my last, 1,000 base games and there are still 500 or 600 expansions left, I will put a bundle together that really incentivizes people to get both so that I can sell both, right? And
Mhm.
so that's something that I will absolutely put controls over. You know, and
And
now
what in terms of
add-ons.
like add-ons and accessories is it the same kind of approach?
I kind of see it as the same, where um, I would say about 50% of my sales would have at least two items in it in the cart, at least 50%. So that could be base game with metal coins, base game with acrylic standees, whatever. So I would make sure to produce at least, whatever I do of the base game, I'm going to make sure that at least 25% of those extras are extra add-ons. So up to 50% depending on the item. So I think that, for example, we have a base game acrylic standees. We have expansion with expansion acrylic standees. Each of those acrylic standees are separate boxes that you don't need the expansion standees if you only have the base game. So if I'm going to sell 4 times the number of base games I do expansions, then I should have more base game acrylic standees than expansion acrylic standees, right? And
Mhm.
so I could see myself maybe making a mistake ordering too many expansion standees and not being able to sell as enough of them. So I might make 1,000 acrylic standees or 2,000 acrylic standees for the base game and only maybe like 500 for the expansion. Which is like I'm not sure what to do yet there. But the metal coins will work in the base game or the expansion. So if if push comes to shove and I've got 500 base games and 400 sets of metal coins, then I'm going to be able to sell those by bundling them together and really incentivizing the order. Maybe even including an order bump at the very end. One thing I think is really smart, by the way, is like after the checkout process has completed, there are platforms like Shopify and WordPress. You can do this both there. You can do it in Magento as well, but there's like this post checkout upgrade. So after they have completed the checkout process and paid you, you can have a screen that's only available for 10 minutes that legit does go away. That's like, hey, if you add metal coins right now to your cart, normally they're $29.99, but we'll give them to you for 19, cutting 33% off the price, and just press this button. And they press that button, their card charge is just upgraded. And it was a really easy one-click thing. I think that's really smart. You can change those
Mhm.
offers over time. So that's kind of my general strategy. So I would say, if I make, so I normally what I sell, I will print, double of what I sell of the base game. The expansion is 25% of the number, or maybe between 25 and 50, maybe of the number of base games that I make that are extra. And then the add-ons are the same, 25 to 50%. And then add-ons that are expansion only that require the base game and the expansion to be useful, those actually are probably cut, further, maybe like 15 or, let's say like 25 to 50% of the expansion games I make are that quantity of add-ons there. So it's a
Cool.
mouthful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's
I haven't made the purchase yet, so we'll talk about this more and in the future after I've made the purchase, why I decided what I did. And then after we get all our product and I start selling stuff, we'll figure out what kind of an idiot I am or if I was a genius.
so. Stay tuned, folks.
As always. Um, so yeah, I mean, you have any final thoughts to share?
No, I just think maybe just to wrap up in terms of controlling Amazon, you need to think really about how to engage that. You obviously want to direct people to your own store because you're going to get the best kind of margins there. and then add-ons, using that as a way to increase your order value, but also incentivize people to come into your store. And then also thinking of different types of add-ons, whether this is component upgrades or whether it's books that are, the part of the theme of your game, or some type of sponsorship that maybe they get like, I don't know, a month free of this subscription because, you get a cut of that or something. Or even design diaries, which I think anyone could do. And I think most people would quite appreciate. That could be even something as small as $5 added to the cart to get a PDF. So, yeah, thinking of ways of bundling and increasing order value, I think is going to be the best way moving forward for your e-commerce and a lot of e-commerce think people want to focus on ads. What's the ad setup? Well, the ads are only useful if they can, I think you can drive traffic to an attractive offer on a website that works well. So that you need to really think about the offer and the products that you're selling before you even get to the ads. So, don't put the cart before the horse.
Right. Yeah. It's going to cost a certain amount of money, which varies per client. But, for me, what was it? I was going to say it was like $20 or so to get somebody to purchase a product on my store.
Well, currently it's about anything between $5 to $15 to get an add to cart. It's kind of what we're looking at.
So, and then, during Christmas time, it's very much, it's a lot cheaper during Christmas time, even though, because just people are twice as likely to add something to checkout as they would normally be, because they have to buy stuff to put under the tree now, but yeah, you want to make sure, like, please don't just print the game and be like, I just want to make the game and not be complicated. It's fine, but you won't have much of a success after, unless you print, 15,000 copies of your game and it goes everywhere. And even then, like, you should have printed an add-on. You should print some kind of add-on, right? But yeah, the add-on, it's still going to cost the same amount to get somebody to purchase. So if you can upgrade the value of their order or increase the number of transactions you get from that person, then it's just so much more profitable. Your add-on can pay for all of your marketing by itself if you it can give you a very successful post crowdfunding experience. You can sell and make a lot of money that way. But I'll add, last thing I want to say is like the add-ons that you make, don't just make an add-on that hasn't had any thought put into it. Poll your community. I think that you're like, what kind of add-ons do you guys want? You can also kind of get a sense of that when you play test your game in person with people. You can ask people, what sort of what sort of premium upgrades would you like? Or even better, you can figure out what people are using all the time. What are they fiddling with? What are they looking at? What are they touching? What are they constantly using? Like, what kind of tokens do they use all the time? Upgrade those to premium bits. People really like that. Or if people complain, or if you have a lot of cards in your game, a neoprene mat is great. If you put a lot of cards on the board, then the neoprene mats make it easier to pick them up, right? So, so anyway, that's a little bit of kind of last minute point. We ready to have Robot Richard send us out?
Yeah, let's do it.
Well, that's all the time we have for this week's episode of Crowdfunding Nerds. For more resources, articles, and to listen to past podcasts, please visit us at crowdfundingnerds.com. And if you have a crowdfunding question, we also have a page on our site where you can send a message directly to us. Please visit crowdfundingnerds.com/question. And if your question is a great question, we may include it in a future podcast. Thank you all again for listening to this week's episode, and we'll see you next week. Stay nerdy.
Hey, crowdfunding nerds, if you're looking for an awesome fulfillment partner for US shipping, you should really consider Bridge Distribution and Fulfillment. I personally use them. I've used them for multiple projects. They do such a great job. They also can fulfill Amazon orders and get you prepped for Amazon and their warehousing team. I have been so happy using Bridge Distribution. I'm really proud that they're sponsoring us. If you reach out, bridgedist.com, that's bridgedist.com, let them know we sent you. All right.